there's a great place, there's a great moment in Alice in the Wonderland when she meets the cat and asks, is it the right path? Am I going, is it the right path that I'm going on? And the cat says, where are you going? She says, I don't know. Well, in this case, it is the right way. And I always found it very meaningful, because unless you know where you would like to be at the end, whenever you go is right. And it can be interpreted in many ways, as in a positive way and in a negative way. But this sense of understanding of who you are and where you're going is what I think many people think from time to time. And I thought whether to include this next bit or not, because it's not, it doesn't promote positive habits. But I decided to include it and then say with a remark. In 1945, Churchill gave a lunch in Egypt for King Ibn Saud of Saudi Arabia. Having been told that there could be no smoking or consumption of alcohol in the presence of the king, Churchill informed His Majesty that his own religion required as an absolute sacred right smoking cigars and also drinking alcohol before, after, and if needed during all meals. So King graciously accepted his position. And the lesson of the story is not about consumption of alcohol or smoking, right? So this is bad habit. Nor the lesson of the story is how to determine who is in charge. It's not about power games. I think the lesson of the story is about identity. If you don't know who you are, and what you stand for, it's not hard for others to make decisions for you. The moment you know who you are and you understand what makes who you are, you're ready to fight for what you stand for. If you're curious about how and what to eat like an Israelite in ancient times, you might want to read this week's Torah portion, Shmini. And I think the connection with the identity and our actions is direct. Your actions, what you do, is a reflection of who you are. And I've always been curious, why? Why do we have dietary laws? In many religions, by the way, Judaism here is not unique, but this connection between actions and our internal core is something quite deep, and that can be reflected in very usual things like food. So at the end of this week's Torah portion, the Torah gives us a list of permitted and forbidden food. These rules are known as laws of Kashrut, and the word kasher or kosher means fit or proper in Hebrew. So the first rule is about animals. You can eat any animal that has split hoofs and chews its cud, such as cows, sheep, and goats. You cannot eat any animals that does not have both of these features, such as camels, rabbits, pigs. The second rule is about fish. You can eat any fish that has fins and scales, such as salmon, tuna, and herring. But you cannot eat any fish that doesn't have both of these features, such as shellfish or sharks, for example. The third rule is about insects. You might be surprised, but Judaism allows you to eat some types of insects, according to the Torah. Please read Leviticus 11 if you would like to know more. The fourth rule is about birds. You cannot eat any birds of prey, such as scavenger, or scavenger, such as eagles, ravens, ostriches, owls, bats, and some other. The list is, there's a long list of the birds that you are not allowed to eat. But you can eat any other type of bird that is not listed in the Torah. The fifth rule is about dead animals. You cannot eat or touch carcasses of any animal that has died naturally or been killed by another animal. If you do so, you yourself will become unclean until the evening. You will also have to wash your clothes. So these are the main rules of Kashrut. Of course, there is also one more rule important, which is mentioned in different places in the Torah, about mixing dairy and meat. Rather, a verse that's interpreted as not mixing dairy, as a prohibition of mixing dairy and meat together in one meal. So, later tradition also added rules of slaughter, of kosher slaughter. So you're only allowed to eat kosher animal if it's been slaughtered in the right way. So this is not a lesson about what to do and what not to do, and I'm wrong Rabbi to tell you how to lead your lives. However, what I'm interested in is why. Why different commentators, different thinkers chose to keep kashrut, or how they explained what kashrut is about. Torah doesn't give you an explanation. Torah gives you the law. But later tradition tries to explain what it is. So physician and commentator Maimonides, great commentator, he said that food that's forbidden by the laws of Torah is unfit for human consumption, which means unhealthy. He thought that it's unhealthy. For example, he says about mixing meat and milk, according to Maimonides, it is the undoubtedly gross food and makes the person overfull. Well, this is his view. Most of other commentators, however, disagree with Maimonides, and they insist that there's nothing to do with health. Nothing to do with health. As early as Tosafot, this is the 12th century commentators, they write commentary, and they write this. The rabbis decreed that one must not eat cooked food of a non-Jew. This is very interesting. Suddenly, it's suddenly something different. Because of the concern that they eat impure things. Okay, fine. And more than this concern, it seems that the reason for this decree is because of the concern of intermarriages between Jews and non-Jews. So the idea is that you share a meal together, and therefore this is how you form a relationship. Well, as liberal Jews, I think we should find better reasons rather than exploit our tradition to promote tribalism. I don't think this is good enough for Judaism just to say, oh, we should just separate ourselves from others. And there should be a positive reason for kashrut, or maybe not. So here is another one. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi wrote this. No existence is devoid of divine spark. Indeed, nothing can exist without the pinpoint of godliness that imbues it with being and purpose. But not every spark can be actualized. There are certain elements whose sparks are inaccessible to us. The fact that something is forbidden by the Torah means that its husk cannot be penetrated, so that its spark remains locked within and cannot be elevated. In other words, he says, there is something in Kashrut laws. We just don't know what. But because it's written in the Torah, we should assume that there is a divine spark there, and therefore keep it. Don't ask questions. Again, as liberal Jews, obedience without questioning is not something I would like to teach. That's not good enough. Solomon Ephraim Lunshitz, author of Kli Yakar, quite an important book in our tradition, asks very important question. What was the necessity for the entire procedure of ritual slaughter, he asks. And he answers, for the sake of self-discipline. It's far more appropriate for a person not to eat meat. Only if they have a strong desire for meat does the Torah permit it. Only after the trouble of inconvenience. Perhaps because of the bother and annoyance of the whole procedure, people will be restrained from such a strong and uncontrollable desire for meat. So looking at these interpretations and understandings of Kashrut, you can see the story behind it, the story of development, of multi-layered tradition, struggling with the questions of why. It started as a theory of healthy eating. You don't eat this because it's unhealthy. Well, we know it's not true. There are many people who eat pork and shellfish. They're healthy, they're happy, they live long life. Then developed an idea that it is for the purpose of keeping Jewish people separate from others. Tribal ideas. But not all are happy to be part of such religion that separates ourselves from others and distinguish and thinks that we are better than others. Then the tradition came to an important idea of self-discipline and possible argument for Jewish vegetarian diet, or at least restriction of meat. So, not finding this idea very persuasive, early progressive Judaism developed this approach. 1885, the first official platform for progressive Judaism had this official position towards Kashrut. Not only Kashrut, but you'll see. We hold that all such Mosaic and rabbinic laws as regular diet, priestly purity and dress originated in ages and under the influence of ideas entirely foreign to our present mental and spiritual state. They fail to impress the modern Jew with a spirit of priestly holiness. Their observance in our days is apt rather to abstract than to further modern spiritual elevation. In other words, they cancelled it. They did not think that Kashrut has anything to do with spirituality. However, we develop, we learn, and we think. And this is almost 100 years later. That one was 1885. This is 1979. The same organization. In fact, it was adapted and written in the same city, in Pittsburgh. They wrote, Judaism has always recognized a religious dimension to the consumption of food. Being a gift of God, food was never to be taken for granted. And if this was true of food generally, it was especially true of meat, fish, and fowl, which involve the taking of life. Those Reform or progressive Jews who observe the dietary laws, totally or in part, seems to do so because, A, it adds to their personal expression of Judaism. The daily meals served as a reminder of Jewish ideals. everything becomes your religion then. Everything becomes an expression of your identity. So you eat in a way that expresses who you are. B, it provides an additional link with other Jews and a link to history. It enables Jews of all groups to eat in their home or their synagogue. This is what's called Klal Israel, connection with all Jews in the world. Rather than to focus on disconnection or separation ourselves, we can focus on something positive, connection. And C, it encourages ethical discipline. And this last bit is really important. Think what you consume. And the question is that appeared at our alternative Pesach Seder, so the seventh day, was quite an important question. Let's say, if you know for sure that a shirt or that a piece of cloth you're wearing right now is made by slaves, you know, if you knew it for sure, would you still wear it? This is one of the questions. And if you knew that the person, that the animal, or that something that you consume, food, it doesn't matter what, is made unethically, is made by suffering of others, would you still eat it? And it encourages us to think of what you do, what you eat, what you consume, what you buy. So laws, principles, and our attitude towards our practice may change, but one thing remains clear. What we do, what we act, the way we live our life, is reflection of who we are. Shabbat Shalom.